Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing my October wrap up. This video is also going up on November 3rd, which is election day. So if you haven't voted yet and you are in the US and you are eligible to vote, please do. I highly encourage you to do so. And I highly encourage you to vote for Biden. But so let's get on with this wrap up. Let's get on with this wrap up. So in the month of October, I read 8 books, which is a record for me. I'm pretty impressed with myself, and on the whole, most of them were really, really good. I really enjoyed what I read this month. Some of these books will be familiar to you all. Some of them will be brand new. I think that makes sense, because if some of them are new to you, that means some are not new to you. So the first book I read this month was Untrumping America by Dan Pfeiffer. Dan Pfeiffer was the director of communications in the White House under President Obama, and he's also one of the co-hosts of the progressive podcast Pod Save America. And if you are a fan of Pod Save America, you are familiar with Dan Pfeiffer and his opinions. And I will say, the biggest problem with this book is there wasn't really anything new that I haven't heard him say in other places. Another problem was this was written before the COVID-19 pandemic, so a lot of what he says is no longer relevant in many ways. So for example, he talked about the uphill battle the Democrat challenger would have because the economy was doing so well under Trump, and when an economy is doing well under an incumbent president, that president tends to win re-election. That, if you're familiar with America's economy right now, is no longer relevant. So I think a lot of what he says here wouldn't have changed in light of COVID, but a lot of what he says kind of made me laugh a little bit, considering what came after he wrote this, because when he was still writing this, it was still during the Democratic primary. We didn't even have a nominee yet. I particularly liked his comments on why Fox News is bad and how he discourages Democratic candidates from hosting these town halls and stuff on Fox News. He made really good, valid points then, because I remember back during the primaries, that was a big deal because Pete Buttigieg and Bernie Sanders both did town halls on Fox News, and Elizabeth Warren refused to do that. Dan Pfeiffer kind of sided with Elizabeth Warren, saying that it gave like a legitimacy to Fox News, and that it undermined a lot of the work that activists have been doing to basically make Fox News kind of worthless to sponsors, because money is the ultimate boss of this thing. I also thought he gave really good arguments for why court expansion is vital and court reform is vital during a Democrat presidency - Democrat Senate or Democrat Senate majority. Anyways, I gave this 3 out of 5 stars because, again, a lot of it I kind of already knew, just being familiar with who Dan Pfeiffer was and his opinions on things. But I do think it was well written, and I really enjoyed reading it. I just don't think I should have bought it, but I did. And it's going to go in my library, and future generations will come across it and be like, what? So then, after I read that, I read The Poet X by Elizabeth. I don't have my notes in front of me. The Poet X by this person, whoever's name's on the cover of The Poet X. Elizabeth Adido or something like that. Avido. I don't know. I'm not sure. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I really liked it. I think, was it my favorite book I read this month? I think it was my only 5-star I read this month. But I don't think it was necessarily my favorite. I think I will do a video on how I rate and review things, because just because I think something is 5 stars doesn't automatically mean it's my most favorite thing. Either way, Poet X was 5 out of 5 stars. I don't think it was my favorite that I read this month. And I will do a video explaining how I rate and review things soon. But anyway, so the Poet X tells the story of Ziamara, who is a high school student in New York. I believe she lives in the Bronx. And the Poet X is told completely through poetry, through poem. So Ziamara loves to write poetry. That's how she expresses herself. And that's the communication style that the book takes, which makes it a really fast read. So don't let the size of it dissuade you from like actually reading it. I finished it in a day. It's really fast. Ziamara has a very tumultuous relationship with her mother, who is very religious, and Ziamara is questioning her religion. I can't explain exactly why this is 5 stars. I really related to Ziamara because I was raised Catholic, and so Ziamara is being raised Catholic, and so I related to her questioning of her faith and trying to figure out what her place in the world is. And granted, while my parents were never as controlling as her parents were, when I first started questioning religion, it was there was some pushback from my mom when I did, but things are better now. I mean, things were bad then, but either way, I related to Ziamara, and I related to her being an awkward teenager who just wrote poetry for fun, because that's what I did. I also just think was such a unique take to do it all in poetry and all in prose, and I'd like to read more books like that. Yeah, engaging, 5 out of 5 stars. That's not much more I could say about it, to be honest. It's a really good book. So next I read Wild Girls by Rory Power, and I'm going to do a much longer review on this book because I hated it with a passion. I think the more I thought it over, the more I kept dropping it down in stars. So I think right now, mentally and in my head, it sits at like 1 or 2 stars. I don't know. But I had a lot of issues with it. So this was pitched to me as a female version of Lord of the Flies with magical realism. And it's not that. This has nothing to do with Lord of the Flies. And everybody who thinks it does has clearly never read Lord of the Flies or don't remember it very well. Other than it being a group of people that identify by one single gender, in this case women, in the case of Lord of the Flies men, being trapped on an island, isolated from society, there's really not much else in common. In Lord of the Flies, the boys, for one thing, they don't have any parents there. They don't have any teachers or adult figures there. They do in Wilder Girls. In Lord of the Flies, the boys have to basically think and like independently act, and in Wild Girls, the girls are being told what to do. So there's just that. This gets 1, maybe 2 stars for the writing, because I would actually read another Rory Power. Oddly enough, Wilder Girls reminds me a lot of Saw Kill Girls, which I read last year and I hated. And I could go into why that book is terrible too. Maybe I'll just do another review on that, books I hate. The actual plot of Wilder Girls is a boarding school located on an island for girls. And one day this virus outbreaks and it causes the teachers, like teaching staff, to die off except for a couple. And it causes the younger women to basically have body hormone deformities. Like our main character, her eye has fused shut. One of her friends has a second backbone that is like broke out of her skin. Ugh, ugh. It wasn't hard to read or anything like that, but it was kind of like, what is even the point of this? Like I said, the writing was good, but the story went in directions that I just couldn't really sign off on. Like, first of all, there are no likable characters in this book, which is fine. I'll read about unlikable characters. That I don't mind. The problem is that these characters, there was like no reflection or no analyzing why they're bad characters. It wasn't really analyzed, and it was just frustrating in the end. And there's a scene in the book where the girls get betrayed by somebody, and they act like it's a big scandal that this happens. But then in the very next scene, our main characters do the exact same betrayal, but like worse. And it's never like dissected or taken apart or anything like that. So it's frustrating. The same thing happened in Saw Kill Girls, where one of the main characters was helping the bad guy, and in the end there was no negative consequences for her. And again, I don't need all my characters to face consequences and stuff like that, but it would have been nice to at least acknowledge that these characters are shitty, you know? Again, like I say, I'm gonna do a spoiler review of Wild Girls because I just want to talk about it. So stay tuned for that. I think it's gonna go up on Thursday. It won't be like a long video like I normally do. I'm gonna try to keep it within 5 to 7 minutes, to be honest. But anyways, Wilder Girls, 1-2 stars, something like that. Again, I would read another Roar Power book because I liked her writing, and that was really the only thing that got me through it. Plus, it's short. So, I read The Night Swim by Megan Golden. So I'm going to try to start getting through at least a couple book of the months because I have so many of them like stockpiled. But I will only manage to get through one this month, and that was The Night Swim, obviously. So this is about Rachel. So in my book haul, I explained this and I explained it incorrectly. I messed it up. So this book is about a podcaster named Rachel who has a true crime podcast, and it became like really, really famous because it cleared the name of an innocent man. It solved an old case kind of thing. So now she's in her 3rd season, and she's going to cover a rape trial. And this trial is like in this small town, and she's just going to cover it live. Which seems like an interesting decision because you never know how long court cases are going to run. So I guess she was just going to go until it ended. It could have been like 2 episodes. It could have been like 100. She will just keep going. But I digest. I do that too. I ate lunch just a few minutes ago, but I digress. Anyways, so she goes to this small town, and while she's here, she gets a note from somebody telling her about a mystery that happened like 25 years ago where a local girl drowned, but she didn't really drown. In my book haul, I thought that girl was Rachel's sister, but no, it's actually no relation whatsoever to the main character, Rachel. What actually happens is the sister of the murdered girl from 25 years ago reaches out to Rachel because she's a fan of the podcast, and that's what happens. I gave The Night Swim 4 out of 5 stars, which is probably probably on average for a thriller, in my opinion. I can't think of any thriller where I've been like, yes, this is a 5-star, because I feel like with thrillers, there's always that, I wish it had done something else, or I wish it had done something more, or I don't like how this twist was unveiled. And for this, I think it falls more into the third category. I don't like how the twist was unveiled, because I'm not quite sure how we got to I'm not quite sure how the person who figured out who the murderer was from 25 years ago figured it out and got that person to confess. Does that make sense? So person A solves the crime from 25 years ago, and she gets the murderer, person B, to confess. I'm not quite clear on how person A got person B to confess. To me, it would just seem like a simple, like, no, I'm not confessing. I guess maybe guilt. They seemed like they were really guilty. I don't know. I was, again, not quite clear how we got to that point. I will say, though, I liked how the rape trial was handled, and I like how it resolved, because it resolved itself in a very realistic way. There was at no point where I was ever on the accused side in the rape case. Like, I just assumed from the get-go he indeed was a rapist, and lo and behold, that's not really like too much of a surprise. The author doesn't really do a whole lot of like, well, maybe he didn't do it, and maybe it was just like gray area of consent. No, it's not really like that. So yeah, 4 out of 5 stars. The pacing was really good. The length is really good. Plotting was really good. I hope there's more books featuring this character, because I really liked her, the podcaster, Rachel. I really liked her a lot. And it seems like this premise is set up to have more books in a series. And I like mystery thrillers that follow the same character over and over again. But anyways, there you go. Next one. All right, now we're getting to the books I have talked about on my channel, so I'm not going to try to like repeat too much. Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson was in my first ever Unplugged book box that I did, and I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. The plot is that Enchanted here is a high school student, and she goes to audition for a musical American Idol type show, and she comes across the R. Kelly knockoff, Corey Fields. And Corey Fields decides to be like her mentor, but he really ends up like abusing her mentally, physically, sexually. It's a hard read. And again, like I said in my Unplugged book box, this is basically pulls a lot from the R. Kelly case. But in this story, Corey Fields, aka R. Kelly, is actually murdered in the beginning, and the murder is used as a framing device. And the whole murder dropped it down, because I understood why good old Tiffany D. Jackson here decided to start with the murder of Corey Fields, because it really grabbed her attention right off the bat and gave an air of mystery. But I personally think it didn't really give off a good, satisfying ending. And as I said in my Unplugged book box review, I never bought that the person who did murder Corey Fields would actually be the person to go there and murder him, as opposed to murdering him through other means. Trying not to spoil this, because again, I think you should read this. This is one of my favorite books of the year so far. Probably ends up in my top 10. But I do think the framing device, because of who ultimately ended up being the murderer and the fact that he was murdered at all, kind of took away a little bit from the impact of the book. So, but 4 out of 5 stars, recommend it. So this is one of my 2 favorite books in the month, and so this is Ray Barrier by Jordan Ifuko, and I reviewed this in my Once Upon a Time book club unboxing. This is the story about Tara Rishai, who is raised by a woman called the Lady in isolation, and she lives in this fantasy world where the ruler of the kingdom has this ability to direct Ray from the sun. He's called the Ray Barrier. And the Ray Barrier always has a council of 11 people who are representative of the countries in the kingdom. And he picks those people when he's like a child. He picks those people when he's a child, and they basically grow up, and then they become like the ruling council of the kingdom. So Tara Rishai here goes off to become one of those council members to the next king, Ray Barrier. But the Lady gave her mission to kill the next king, who at this time is a child. So that gives us our little conflict, which, to be fair, is resolved a little early in the book, and then it becomes kind of like a road trip narrative. But I said in my unboxing review of this is that the author was very ambitious with what she tried to do. There's a lot of world building in here, and it took me a couple tries to understand what was going on. And there is one scene in particular in here where creatures from the underworld get released onto the kingdom, and apparently it's like this big major massacre, and the main characters and the other council members are traumatized. But to me, it only read like it took place over like a page or 2, and I didn't really understand the impact of it because it wasn't written that well. I only understood the impact of it because afterwards characters were telling us it left a big impact on them. But when reading it as it was happening, it didn't read like a big deal to me. So the author falls into tell, don't show a little too much. But I think overall this is a really, really strong book, and it's got a sequel coming out next year, and I will pick it up and recommend it. 4 out of 5 stars. And then my Halloween books. So I made a long vlog called for the Halloween Once Upon a Time boxes, where the book series Once Upon a Book Club. I keep saying Once Upon a Time or something like that. The service is actually called Once Upon a Book Club, and they had Halloween editions. They had the spooky edition and they had the sweet edition, and I got both of them, and I did an unboxing, and I did a really long vlog. So you can go watch that if you want to. It's long, mostly because I go off on the presents that I got with one book for a while. But the first book I read was The Haunting of Ashburn House by Darcy Coates. And this was in the scary box, and this is a creepy little book. So this tells the story of Adrienne, who inherits a house from a relative that she didn't know she had. And so she moves there to a small town to go live in the house, and creepy stuff starts haunting. This book is basic, but not in like a bad way. So I should say that horror and ghost stories aren't really my genre. It's not something I really pull to. And this turned out to be a 3 out of 5 star simply because it is what it is. What you read on the back of the book is what you get. So there wasn't really any hidden surprises, which, again, it's not a bad thing. Like, the next book I want to talk about, there's no hidden surprises there either. So, and I love it. But for this, I wanted something more. The first half of the book was slow and very easy to put down. And then we got to the second half when we established that the supernatural thing is in fact happening. It starts picking up. But like I said in my vlog, I find that in horror is at its best when it doesn't show the thing that goes bump in the night. And then as soon as it does, it has to get it in and get it out really quick. I compared it to the recent It remakes. So in the first remake of It, you don't see It that much. They use him pretty well. And so when he pops up, he's creepy, he's effective. But in the second chapter of the It remake series, he's there constantly, to the point where he's annoying and you just want him to get off the screen because you are no longer enjoying the movie. It's not because you're afraid of Pennywise, it's because Pennywise is driving you insane and you just want him to shut up so the other characters can talk. And then it's not an effective horror story anymore, because you never want to look at your characters and be like, you're an annoying little 5-year-old. Please leave the screen. And that's kind of where this fell. We were first introduced to this supernatural being. It was creepy. It was effective. The way good old Darcy Coates, the way the author describes the supernatural being moving around is creepy. But then the creature kind of overstays its welcome. Creature, ghost, whatever, overstays its welcome. And it becomes a little Pennywise. And then it wraps up. And again, this was cute. I don't want to say this is cute, but this promised me something and it delivered on that something. So there you go. But again, only 3 out of 5 stars. Just an average book. And I will probably never think of this again. And maybe if I see another book by good old Darcy Coates, I'll pick it up, but probably not. However, our last book and the Sweet Box, I am actually going to pick up. So I read more from this author. So I read 15 Minutes of Flame by Kristen Becher. And this is a cozy mystery. And it's about Stella, who owns a candle shop in Nantucket. And she solves a 100-year-old mystery that somehow also led to a murder in modern day. Hope I explained that well. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars, and I really, really enjoyed it. Cozy mysteries always made me think of my grandma because she loved them, and maybe now that I'm like getting older, I just kind of want to read a cozy little mystery where like it's not graphic or anything like that, and it gets solved up really simply, and the stakes aren't high. I know that's an odd thing to say about a mystery, like the stakes aren't high. They're not. Like, at no point did I ever think our main character's life was in danger or anything like that. But this was in the Sweet Box, and it is a very sweet little book, and I quite enjoyed it. I really don't know why, other than to say this came at the right time that I needed it. Like, right now, the country is falling apart. Like, we're on the verge of like this is the election of our lifetime right now, and I know that sounds really cheesy, and I have voted in every election since John Kerry versus Bush back in 2004. I'm old. And every election since then, I've always heard that this is the election of our lifetime, and this is the first time that it's actually felt like that. So every day I wake up and I'm stressed because of my work, and then I volunteer, and it's just politics is a fixture of everyday life. And this showed up, and it was just a light, fluffy mystery. Yes, somebody died, but it wasn't like graphic or violent or anything like that. And it was resolved in a nice, tied up manner. It was what I needed. This showed up when I needed it. So I think a lot of my love for this book is simply time-based. And I know a lot of people are like, a cozy mystery, you liked it that much? You're willing to put it on top of like a YA fantasy that's groundbreaking? Yes, I am. It also has a cat in it. That helped too. So anyways, yeah. My 2 favorite books of the month. Weird Barrier by Jordan Ifuko and 15 Minutes of Flame by Christian Betcher. They have nothing in common, but I love them. So yeah, that's where we're at. So you, now below, have you read any of these books that I've talked about? Are you going to pick up any of them now? Please like, comment, and or subscribe if you would like. Ring that bell for notifications. I think that does something too. I post videos at least twice a week. I try to. So we'll see how that goes. It's kind of going, I guess. But yeah. And again, if you are eligible to vote and you haven't voted, today, the day I'm posting this, is election day and it's your last day to vote. So please do. Anyways, bye.